Cool stuff. We're going live. You know, there's always that delay, and I'm just like, sometimes when it comes to delays, it's something else. Cool stuff. So it shows that we are live on YouTube, and we're all together here on Zoom. Cool stuff. So a very good evening to everybody. Sorry that we're like all of 1 minute late, but I know that you will forgive. You will forgive. Let's see. You know, technology, we always must double check that it is all good in the beginning, in the beginning. Cool stuff. So I want to hear from you guys. How are you doing? Drop in the comments below if you're on YouTube, or drop in the chat if you're on Zoom. If you are good, tell me I'm good. I want to see either some thumbs up. I want to see that you're good. Do some reaction and some sort like that, so that we can see that, you know, we all playing nice together. Cool stuff. Fantastic. High five to you too, Luyolo. Awesome stuff. We see there's exciting biting. Kerry says, evening, I'm all good. Thanks. You know, Kerry, I don't know you from soap, but I must tell you this. I love the fact that when I see your name pop up, and I'm like, she's here, she's early, she's relevant, she's present. I think I need to do something a little bit crazy. I must think about it, but good crazy that will maybe benefit you somewhere along the line. All, all good. I see Colleen. Colleen, you here? Welcome, Colleen. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, just put you on the spotlight. Yeah, Colleen's just about to sway me right now, but you can't sway me beyond social media. Cool stuff. All right, guys, we are all here. We are good. Let's mark the register for all of those that have typed in hi, that they're all good. There's still more people coming in, but we're going to get this baby on the go. As you all know, this evening I've got two absolutely special guests coming in. Wait, hold on. Don't worry, Colleen. Whatever challenges you got, I still see you. Edgar, all good, thanks. We see you too. This evening I've got two very, very special guests. The first guest I've got, her name is Silna Stain. So you're going to see her shortly. I will give her the platform in a moment so that she can introduce herself. We are not going to monopolize too much of her time, you know, but we are going to abuse the time that we do have in a very good way, of course, right? And then what we will do is, as I shared last night, all your attorney questions, whether it was from property wholesaling / sourcing, whether it was eviction law, like Kerry had mentioned, or whether it was about the offer to purchase. I think it was Lou Yolo that actually had mentioned a couple of those. What we're going to do is drop the questions in the comments in the chat respectively. And I'm going to catch the question, share it with Silna, and then Silna will be able to run with it. However, if Silna does need information, what I love about Silna, she's the coolest chick under the sun. She usually says, who's the person that asked the question? Can you please explain? So if you are here on Zoom, we may just have you explain a little bit more so that we can be as close to your scenario and answering your question as far as possible. Cool. So let me not talk too much. Silna, the stage is all yours. Please introduce yourself. And like I shared, I will go on and facilitate the questions that do come through.
Brilliant. Hi, Gina. Thank you so much for having me. I love it every time you message me and say, Silna, are you busy? Are you available tomorrow evening or whatever? I always get very excited because I know you're going to put me in front of an audience that really takes something from the conversation we have. And I really love adding value to any property investor's journey, even if I just save you one little pitfall that I've seen in the past, or if I answer a question that makes your life easier. I love being on webinars with you, so thank you so much for having me again. Introduction quickly, I am Silna Stain. I'm the Managing Director of SSLI Incorporated. We're a property law firm specializing mostly in rentals and evictions, obviously do conveyancing and all the other fun property stuff, but our actual focus and main focus will always be on the investor space, in the rental space, And unfortunately, but fortunately, the eviction space, so you will usually see us when it comes to evictions and those kind of things. So happy, throw me with any one of your questions. I've been blessed with the ability to say, huh? I do not understand your question, as Gina rightly said, so you can explain. I will never wing a question. So if I don't have enough facts, I will tell you if I can't answer, and I might have to ask a few questions before I can answer. So if you want to ask a question, please hit me, but give me as much as possible facts. Or if it's simply around a legal principle, that's easy enough for me to do. So please use me, I'm here.
I love it. So while you guys are getting your fingers ready and typing away, what I'd like to share both on YouTube as well as on the chat, I have dropped Silna's website address. So you'll be able to find all her details for the just in case where you need somebody who you know now, like, oh, I know this person's got superpowers. She's got the law superpowers on her hands. So I want to say, please go ahead and reach out to her if you need any assistance in that avenue. What I'd love to add on to Silna's introduction, and I think more particularly while I'm waiting for the questions, I had the book with me, and then my daughter was busy here with my life. Yeah, you know, when I've got an assistant that is more busy than me, it's not even funny. So Silna, this is also partly me buying time to get everybody's questions going. Silna has written an awesome book. Let's see, it's not shining too much, right? So I
No.
was and still am a student of this book. There's a lot of awesome concepts that, I go through in this particular book. It's property rental and evictions. I remember when we started talking, I was going to put a course together. COVID happened. And nonetheless, I do still have the framework. And God willing, in the future, I'd be able to get my teeth stuck back into this particular book. So if there's anyone that is interested in something like this, maybe on your website, is there anything, Silna?
Yes, there is
I think the
on
book is
my
there, right?
website.
Yes, the book
Yes,
is.
I don't have a
Yeah,
lot of
awesome
copies
stuff.
left. I'm definitely not going to print more because that one was published in, I think, 2015. So I've been working on a new one for quite some time, but apparently I'm getting busy and then I don't wrap it up. But so there are still a few copies left, but unfortunately I won't print more. So if you want one, you're going to have to, jump relatively quickly. But yes, on our website, you can order a copy.
Fantastic stuff. So maybe you may consider, no pressure, you may want to consider maybe an ebook. But nonetheless, we will leave it right there.
Definitely, definitely. Can we talk about that after at this stage? You can help me with that. You're always giving great ideas.
Fantastic. I certainly will. So Kerry has popped the first question. All right. So Kerry, if there's any more specificity that if there's anything more specific you can get, it will be awesome. But I'm going to throw the question to Silna. But in advance, I'm going to share that there is the eviction process, and Silna may just be able to speak through it. So the question from Kerry is, can I please get more information on the eviction law, basic ins and outs? Is
Uh,
that a weighty enough question for you to be able to address
yes,
it, Silna?
definitely, definitely.
Wonderful stuff.
Gina, that flowchart you just showed on my website under the resources tab, there's a downloadable one of those. So you guys are welcome to go download the flowchart on how an eviction works. But Kerry, I actually like your question. I like the fact that it's that open, so then I can basically pick the parts that I want to specifically deal with. So eviction, ins and outs. So the first thing you need to appreciate about evictions is that there are two very distinct types of evictions. On the one hand, we have residential property evictions. These evictions are governed by the Prevention of Illegal Evictions Act. On the other hand, we have commercial property where nobody resides. So it's not about the property type, it's about the type of occupation. If somebody uses a property for permanent or even temporary shelter, then the eviction will be governed by the Prevention of Illegal Evictions Act, and it has to follow very specific processes to get to the eviction, where that's not the case in commercial type properties. But to start the answer, except for separating between the two types of evictions, there is Section 26 of the Constitution. Section 26 of the Constitution reads, no person may be evicted from their property without a court order, without a court ordering to do so after the court has taken the relevant circumstances into consideration. Now, we've all seen under the lockdown regulations, the heading under the current regulation 73 says prohibition on evictions. But if you read the content is, no person may be evicted without a court order. But this is not unique to our lockdown regulations. This is unique to our Constitution, and this has been the law in our country for always, even way before COVID. So the first thing I want to say is, please, guys, this whole story about we cannot execute evictions, we cannot obtain eviction orders during the national state of disaster is absolute nonsense. We can and we are. We are evicting non-paying tenants. We have been doing so since lockdown level 4. This was the 1st of May last year. So please don't believe this nonsense stories that you see about people saying that we can't evict and we can't execute. We are and we can. Gary, back to your question, how does an eviction work? So the most important thing to understand is we can evict any illegal occupant. To get an occupant into illegal occupation will depend on the facts of the matter. In some cases, you guys as investors buy a multi-let or a big building, and there are random people, you don't know why they are there, they are simply illegal occupants. They don't have a basis for their occupation, they're simply there. They can't show a contract or a consent or anything, they're just there. We can evict them. On the other hand, you have a tenant that stopped paying rent. Now we have to comply with the provisions of the lease agreement as well as potentially the Consumer Protection Act. Give them a certain time period, either in terms of the lease agreement or in terms of the CPA. On our website, together with that flowchart you've just seen on the evictions, is a flowchart on when does the CPA apply to your lease agreement. And in those cases, you need to give the tenant 20 business days to remedy his breach. If he doesn't, you can cancel the agreement. The moment your right of occupation has been cancelled, whatever that was, be it a lease agreement, be it whatever else, we can commence the eviction process. My advice on evictions is never, ever, ever delay. Once you have a non-paying tenant, once you realize you bought a property and your seller doesn't want to vacate, once you realize you need to do an eviction, get to it and get to an expert, a specialist property eviction firm. Because the problem is evictions are complex in law. And it's a very complex process, but it's almost as complex as open heart surgery for a cardiologist who's been doing this for 15 years. It's complex to anybody else, but if you've done it enough time, for me, seriously, by now, evictions are very, very easy. And the attorneys in my firm, I actually personally don't do evictions anymore. I just motivate or possibly irritate the attorneys in SSLR, but they are absolutely brilliant. And this is all that we do. If you call us for anything else, if you've been caught drinking and driving, this is not an us problem. We can't help you. This is what we do. So get to the right people and avoid self-help plans. Disconnecting utilities, lockouts, all of those plans that sounds amazing is illegal, and you will end up with a court order having to place the person back in possession. And except for the legal implications and the costs, it's super embarrassing, guys. Imagine you lock someone out, 3 days later you have to go back with the key, like, sorry, Ella, oopsie, I tried. And from there, the relationship is so sour. The eviction will take longer because now they have a bit more stories to go to court with. And so, Kerry, I know that was a very quick, very broad eviction thing, but you need a court order. Don't try it yourself, and get to it as quickly as possible and get to the right people to do it.
Fantastic stuff. For me, that was quite succinct and to the point. So I think not that you need me to tell you that because you're the expert here, but you did an awesome job answering that particular question. But of course, that's all basis on the learnings that I've gotten from you. So that is awesome stuff. Then Edgar has a question. Edgar's question is quite interesting. I like Edgar. Edgar is a character. I've still got the 3Ds in my head with Edgar. So Edgar says, "Hi, Silna. Why is the conveyancing process resistant to change and technology? In the transfer process, you always have to go to the attorney's office and sign in front of them." So the way I would interpret that question is like, why do we have to go and sign in front of the attorneys? But Silna,
Yes.
as you hear that question, then you can answer it accordingly.
Edgar, so I'm going to answer your question at the risk of being stoned by any other attorney in the country. But luckily, I'm not really very popular amongst attorneys because as much as I am an attorney, I don't attorney very hard because, I am me. And I like to be real and current. And unfortunately, our law doesn't cater for fresh and current. If I had my way, in a perfect world, we would have had our courts privatized and would have had it run through exclusively mediation process, and we would have done away completely with this archaic laws that we are dealing with, that we're all thinking, huh? Are we dead serious? I push very hard towards a uniquely South African legal system. I have the great honor and privilege of, as much as I say stuff like this, I've been on the panel of experts for the Law Society for the past 10 years, specifically on evictions. So I'm the one training all the attorneys in the country on how to do evictions. So it's a pleasure. I do what I can. But luckily, after I've been nagging since 2015, this year, for the first time, the Law Society allowed me to do a webinar around Ubuntu. And why this is relevant to your question is I drive very hard towards a uniquely South African legal system, because I think that it's cool and all that we are based on a Roman Dutch law system. But I think it's very important to recognize that South Africa is a unique country. We have a unique makeup and we function in a very unique way. And I think Ubuntu is the very basis of what our law should be. And if I say we need to push toward mediation, privatizing of courts, things like that, Ubuntu is the absolute cornerstone of what our legal system should be. But to your question, I wish I knew why we can't do things online and virtually, because at least we are there now with our high courts, thanks to COVID. I am that person that says, yay, thanks COVID, because our courts luckily got a bit of a wake up. Our high courts, not our magistrate courts, our high courts are currently running on an exclusively virtual basis over Teams. So, for instance, today we had 11 eviction matters in court in South Gauteng, and the two attorneys that were running the matter sat next to each other in the boardroom, each one on their own laptop, and they can get up and go get them, tea lady brings them coffee, they can go to the bathroom without being super disgusted by court bathrooms. This is important. This is very important. We even had a farewell for one of our team members, and they could pop out to the rest of the office with us. So at least we are seeing a bit of change, but the Deeds Registry Act and the Alienation of Land Act is where your answer lies. Our offers to purchase has to be signed in writing. So it has to be in writing, has to be signed in writing. And unfortunately, the Electronic Communications Act at this stage only accept an advanced electronic signature, which is a darn expensive thing to get, as a valid form of electronic signature. I can promise you, most of us don't have it. It ends up costing quite a bit of money to get a signature, electronic signature that does comply with the Electronic Communications Act. They are luckily a company currently working on local electronic signatures that might be cheaper, because at this stage it's only foreign companies that are doing it. So we are stuck with a slightly weak rand. I don't know if we've got the memo. But luckily, if we have a local company doing that, it might work. But still, the Deeds Registry Act requires all transfer documents to be signed in person and by hand. And we are still transferring in the deeds office in person. So it's very scary to think it's this archaic, but on the other hand, for the time being, until we really understand how to truly secure our virtual dealings and our virtual transactions, I actually prefer it like that, because our Electronic Communications Act, our Cybercrimes Act, our cybercrimes divisions are still so up in the air that, to be honest, if it didn't work the way it's currently working, I would have been a very, very scared person, because I think your typical cyber criminal is years ahead of our law at this stage.
Awesome sauce. That was definitely a mouthful to say. And I also tend to agree with you there, because there's certain things. It's so funny. Random story to validate where you're coming from in terms of cyber crime. I remember at one stage on my website there was like a whole lot of different people registering to access the free calls. And I thought it was quite interesting because some of these names seemed rather odd. So with more investigation, I found that, hey, no, these are just spammers. And so I took necessary precaution and things like that. Needless to say, I've eventually gotten rid of many of the spammers, at least 99% of them, because at some given point they were just registering like it was nobody's business, like you were going to get something from there. And I started thinking about, you know what, when we are not savvy when it comes to online stuff, we can really get taken for a ride, because from my business email address as well and my different Gmail addresses, I also get spammed every day, like at least 4 to 6 different emails that will say that they Standard Bank or that they Nedbank, and it's just a phishing expedition, and collect your COVID money here or whatever sort of card. And when
It's
we
always SARS.
For me lately it's been Standard Bank and Nedbank for whichever reason. I don't know why. I don't know
I'm
why so
getting
much.
SARS. You're lucky. You get
Yes.
banks.
So I just found it like, you know what, if we are not savvy when it comes to technology, we can get taken for a ride. And I certainly hear where you're from. If our law is kind of still slightly up in the air, I would still want to do things face to face nonetheless. So Luyolo says, Luyolo's question is quite lengthy. So if at some point you want to open Zoom chat, Silna, the question is there. So he says, hi Silna, what suspensive condition can one use in an offer to purchase with the sole purpose of sourcing a deal? Can I also use a normal non-disclosure agreement or standard service level agreement to protect the IP I have on the deal from being bypassed by the capital rich, time poor investors? And he's got a lot of questions. I love it. And how may a sourcing agent make their finder's fee or sell their IP on the deal without any penalties from the EAAB? So I'm trusting that you see the questions in there.
Yes, exactly. Sure. Okay. So I think to start off with, I'm going to start at the end there.
Perfect.
as much as we try to avoid the EAAB, we need to consider that the Estate Agency Affairs Act has already been partially replaced by the Property Practitioners Act. Property Practitioners Act hasn't been fully promulgated. There's still a bunch of regulations outstanding. Don't know when that will happen and how that will happen, but it's important to know if you build your entire business around the Estate Agency Affairs Act and the EAAB, just make sure you get enough information and knowledge about the Property Practitioners Act, because if you spend all this time and energy and bam, Property Practitioners Act is promulgated in full, then my favorite legal term is then you will be buggered. I love my
I like that
Latin.
one. I love that term. I love it. You will be buggered.
So please don't get yourself buggered. The thing is, when you act as an estate agent, so when you market a property, when you introduce a purchaser and seller, when you accept rent, when you accept deposits, when you do this on behalf of another person, you are acting as an agent in terms of the Estate Agency Affairs Act. It's as simple as that. To do that without a fidelity fund certificate is extremely risky, especially when it comes to sales, because more and more conveyancers, and I was definitely one of the early adopters on this one, refuse to pay out commission to somebody without a valid FFC. The reason why I do that and the reason why I refuse to pay commission to a person that doesn't have an FFC, but they were acting as the agent, is this is how we should work to protect our industry. Yes, we don't like it, but it's similar to paying tax. It's like me and SARS tonight. But we don't want to pay tax, but we do. We don't want to register with the EIAB, but we might have to. If you act as an agent, you must have an FFC and you must be registered with the EIAB. So I will never advise any investor, Gina, you know this, I will never try and help you to circumvent the act. I will rather say, you know what, go through the process, partner with an agent, get the right things so you can do business and also sleep soundly at night. You never want to be in a position where you put a deal together and you then end up not getting paid after you've spent weeks and weeks on something. So I think that's a very cold and clinical answer, but that's that one. But
yeah.
what you can do.
Sorry, Silna, just before you move on, this is for everybody that listens to some of my property wholesaling videos. Guys, this is why I said the one thing that you need to be focusing on is the Property Practitioners Act. And in one of the examples that I'd given in my property wholesaling video is that sometimes you get excited and you get the seller one-on-one with you, and then you start advertising things. There's a thin line, and I call it this all the time. I got it from a movie. There's a thin line between love and nausea. When we act like a real estate agent, we are going to smell like one to the next person. So what we do as a property wholesaler / sourcing agent needs to be really prim and proper, which is why over time, what I had developed was going to view the property, doing the things multiple times, and then eventually going together with the property investor and presenting ourselves as a united front. Because in that, by the time we get to the lawyer, I'm able to say to the lawyer, could I use you as a conduit to get my money from this guy? So maybe if you want to talk slightly a bit more about using attorneys as conduits, Silna?
Yes, so you definitely can do that. What I would suggest though is make sure you talk to an attorney that does this often and that is comfortable with this. For instance, my firm, as much as we're a specialist property law firm, we don't do this for the simple reason that this is not our area of expertise. So I won't act as a middleman simply because this is not my field of expertise. And I think that's important because attorneys and I say this with the greatest, most collegial respect I have, currently especially, is pretty much hard up right now. We don't have work. Well, we one of the lucky ones in the eviction space. We have a lot of work. Actually, we're quite exhausted by now, but many attorneys at this stage are struggling because the legal process is definitely a bit slower than usual. So don't go to the wrong attorney to do this, and make sure that you pay them a reasonable fee and you agree to the fee up front. Otherwise, you're going to end up getting a middleman helping you out to, dot the I's and cross the T's, and then eventually end up with a massive bill where it could have been much easier to potentially rather partner with an agency instead of an attorney. But it's up to you. And Gina, I think you do so much training on that. I'm going to leave it at that, because I am worried that that we miss each other, because I like using agents and you might like using attorneys. So I won't elaborate on that too much. But I think it's important to know that when you act as an agent, you either need to do it with an FFC or, as Gina rightly said, with an attorney or an agent.
Absolutely. So what I like to do, especially in training, Silna, is show all sides of the coin. This side of the coin, that side of the coin, and the edge, just so that everybody actually gets a bigger picture. Because what often happens, and I mean, no disrespect to a lot of people that have made it really big in property wholesaling, YouTube and a lot of out of country videos simplify the process, because in certain countries like the United States, the process of property wholesaling is a very, very matured discipline, whereas it's not as matured. Because I remember when we started out within our property investing space in 2016, and one of the deals I was closing in 2017, I was so frustrated. I was like, but guys, I thought this is what you were teaching us. I'm frustrated. How come this? How come that? But there was a lot of stuff that we were also adapting from the United Kingdom, because legacy education was very much UK based. So when I do share with everyone the mistakes that I've made, the walls that I've walked into, I want to highlight the different aspects that you can use. But surely a lot of the times, whenever I get a deal, I'm generally going through an attorney, or I just have crafted my way of having different forms together with the investor, just so that I can solidify my work. Because for now, where we are, wholesaling / sourcing is very much a trust-based discipline, if I could call it that. It's very, very much a trust-based discipline. And as Luyolo rightfully said, sometimes the capital rich and time poor investors may just bulldoze you. And I've had that experience before. So I like the fact that, Silna, you're bringing in a different flavor and I'm bringing in a different flavor. One is not more wrong or right, but the fact is, everyone that is watching this video needs to understand there's so much that goes into property sourcing / property wholesaling, that it's not just, oh, I'm simply just being a mediator / facilitator. But nonetheless, go for it. There was another part of the question that Lou Yolo spoke about, is what is a suspensive condition one can use in an OTP with the sole purpose of sourcing the deal? And can I also use a normal NDA or service level agreement to protect the IP I have on the deal from being bypassed by capital rich, time poor investors, and of course then the finder's fee stuff that he spoke of.
Yes, so I think actually now, again, I'm answering this question completely from the wrong way around. So I think we're happy about the Estate Agency Affairs Act and the agent thing and that whole part of it. But that brings me then to the NDA, or the sourcing agreement, the standard service level agreement. Your agreement that you are going to use will depend on the details of the transaction. Now, as much as I love a standard kind of agreement with slight variations in addendums, when it comes to something like this, I want to encourage you to get an attorney to be part of your team. a standard part of your team. Because what new investors miss quite often is the extreme expensive school fees you pay for only getting to the attorney once there is a problem. We currently have an urgent application in court. We're actually awaiting judgment, where there was a sale, an installment sale agreement with Artline. And then after the installment sale agreement was concluded, there was a further agreement signed with a secondary purchaser. And now there's a fight between these two purchasers about who has the stronger right to this property. But like I said, we're currently awaiting judgment, but the legal cost in an urgent application is immense, guys. We're talking 50, 60,000 Rand. And for you to make the mistake of not wanting to include an attorney in the transaction before you sign anything, it could end up not costing you the, let's call it 5,000 Rand you would have paid the attorney to assist you in the process. It will end up costing you thousands of rands in legal costs, because once you've signed an agreement, you are in. An offer to purchase isn't one of those things where you sign and then, well, obviously if the CPA applies, you've got the 5 days cooling off period. But other than that, once you've signed that agreement, you've signed, and now you need to push to transfer, and you need to accept transfer in terms of that agreement, which brings me to your sourcing agreement. So my answer to do you sign an NDA or service level agreement is I don't know, because I don't know which transaction you are in. If you pitch into someone, you might just need to sign an NDA. If you want to brainstorm with someone, you might want to sign an NDA. If you're already there where you're talking to other investors, you might consider a joint venture agreement with an NDA prior to the joint venture. If you are working around a sourcing agreement, you might want to sign a sourcing agreement as well as a joint venture agreement, potentially with an estate agent or an attorney, to cover your bases. So my answer is, I don't know, because I don't know the details of your transaction. And be careful of a one-size-fits-all answer when it comes to these kind of questions, because it's very easy for me to say very confidently, no, definitely an NDA together with a sourcing agreement. And in my younger, less experienced years as an attorney, I loved having the answers. Now, unfortunately, I'm older and wiser, and these wrinkles tell a lot of stories about being wrong and about giving an answer when you think you have all the facts and then realizing you really didn't. So if somebody is brave enough to give an upfront, very straight answer without having all the facts in front of them, my answer is run. Don't even sign an NDA, just run. It's a very dangerous place to be in. Partner with the right firm, partner with an attorney you can contact, and pop a voice note over WhatsApp to get an answer before you make a decision. That's the kind of relationship you need with your attorney. He needs to understand you, or she needs to understand you, your business, and what you do, so you have a constant back and forth flow with this person in your team. And then the suspensive condition for sourcing purposes, that I can answer. That's the one where I've been, around your question the whole time, and at least now here's one that I'm giving you a proper answer on. Remember, your suspensive condition to source a deal could be something as simple as, I have a suspensive condition, I have 20 days or 14 days or whatever, to get business partner approval on the transaction. Or you can even allow for a suspensive condition to do full due diligence. Due diligence, guys, is about as wide as my webcam's angle. It is a very wide term. Due diligence means so many things. So you can allow for a time like that. But remember, never, ever, ever fall into the trap of accidentally confusing a back-to-back deal with a sourcing transaction. And I've seen this so many times. new investors, young investors, not young like young in age, young in, I haven't done this before, sign an agreement with a suspensive condition to obtain financing. They don't want to obtain financing. They actually want to use it as a time period to find a person they can sell onto. So one of two things can happen. A, once your suspensive conditions have been fulfilled, you cannot transfer that contract to a secondary party. You have to do a back-to-back transfer. If it's a transfer duty, properties are over $1 million, you're going to pay transfer duty on both. You're going to pay transfer costs on both. But it makes it better. Now, can I scare them, Gina? I'm sorry. I love you guys. This is why I want to scare you.
Tell them the truth. You know, because at the end of the day, there's going to be at least one person in whether Zoom or whether on YouTube that's going to disagree with us. But the fact of the matter is, as long as we tell the truth, it is okay. So tell the truth, even if it scares the socks off of them.
Exactly. So keep your socks on, because I'm going to scare you. There is a principle in our law around perceived, the word left my brain, fictitious fulfillment of a suspensive condition. How this works is, say for instance, you have a suspensive condition allowing you 14 days to obtain bank finance. If you cannot prove that you have done everything in your power to fulfill that particular suspensive condition, they will approach a court, and based on the principles of fictitious fulfillment, the court will grant an order saying that that suspensive condition has been fulfilled due to the purchaser's active failure to attempt to fulfill that suspensive condition. Now you are actively buggered. Once again, my favorite Latin term. The act of buggering here would mean the seller can now approach a court on an application for specific performance, compelling you as the purchaser to take transfer of the property and perform in terms of that agreement. So never, ever, ever, ever try to use a suspensive condition under a false, actual something else. Due diligence, lekker. You've due diligence it. And part of your due diligence was to see if you can actually make this deal work. That's what due diligence means. Do that. Use the right words, use the right terminology, and never, ever, ever, ever BS your purchaser. That's my other Latin term. Your seller. Because the thing is, the moment you start painting pictures that's not 100% accurate or true. I'm sorry, I just used the term BS in a webinar. I hope you go, but it's clear for most people what I'm trying to say. But the reason why I'm saying this is upfront, honest, truthful business people make money in the long run. Your reputation will always come back to serve you. If it's the wrong reputation, it will come back to bite you. This industry, guys, for all the new investors, this industry is this small. And we see the same people over and over and over again. And we know who the people are that sells, cotton wool instead of cotton candy. And you do not want to be seen as that. So I'm not saying that's what you want to do. I'm saying be careful of suspensive conditions that's not reflecting the true intention of the parties.
100%. You know, at this moment, I want to can I get an amen? This is how I feel. And one of the things, Silna, the reason I have a YouTube channel is to share with everybody what I didn't know, the mistakes that I made, the walls that I walked into, the frustrations that I walked into, but also to share on the other side, look, guys, there is a silver lining to this as long as we can do it right. And what I also want to add to Luyolo is that, like I shared last night, it's a brilliant question. I was happy that we're going to bring it before Silna. But one of the main things is The suspensive conditions really need to be ideal for that particular deal. And Silna, you nailed it. And I like the fact that you also confirmed it in what you shared, and you and I didn't even talk about it. So I have got one, two, three questions. I'm going to put a lid on the third question. I'm going to end off that question with Kerry. We have Leka abuse sold in this evening, so thank you for being abused. But if you could hold on a little while longer with us, I really
Go
would
well.
appreciate it. Now, I've got a quick confession to make. I saw Colleen, right? And Colleen is my next guest that's coming on. And I saw her name wasn't showing as Colleen. And so I renamed it to Colleen. But then I think I also renamed somebody else. So I'm wondering, is this Colleen? Or is this the person I just renamed Colleen? The question is, hi, Silna, as a first time property investor, should I buy as a natural person or a juristic person? Wow.
I don't know. I don't know your story. Once again, never ever one size fits all answer. The reason usually people recommend buying in a juristic person would be either for protection against creditors. Now, the truth about protection against creditors is the only way I can completely protect you against a creditor is if you don't have credit. Or if you need to have credit, service that credit as you should. If you owe money to someone and you do not pay them, you will be buggered regardless of the entity or the form that you are in. In South Africa, we have the ability to pierce the corporate veil. This means if you traded in a juristic entity and you've been trading recklessly or, not the way you should, you can still go after that person in his personal capacity. So if it's for protection against creditors, I would say, no. If you need a bond and your option is natural person, but I need a bond, or brand new company, obviously natural person because the company won't get a bond at that stage. Never, ever, 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 ever buy property in a trust. You can buy property in a company whose shares are held by a trust. But the tax that you're going to pay in a trust is painfully high, 42% tax on a trust. You can definitely utilize a trust, and you can have a trust holding shares of a company holding your property, but never buy property in a trust. So once again, not a one size fits all thing. What I can recommend though is pick up the phone or pop us a mail tomorrow. SSLR is always very happy to journey with new investors. So have a conversation with us. We will look at your facts, your situation, your why, because your why will determine your entity. If your why is just to, see if it's exciting to do property, do it in your personal capacity. If your why is to cater for your family, let us help you then with the succession and the longevity and the really building something. So pop us a message and we are more than happy to journey with you. If you already have a firm that you have a relationship with, have this conversation with them, because depending on your situation, the answer will be dramatically different.
100%. I love it when things come together. So, funny story, Sona. when we say goodbye to you just now, probably about 15 minutes into the short presentation I have for everybody tonight, guess what's going to come up? I'm talking about business structures and saying not one size fits all. It all goes back to your circumstances. And the funny thing is, I find this happening quite often, right? Whether I do a YouTube video, whether somebody inquires and I answer them like that, they get so frustrated, like, just damn it, give me the answer. And I'm like, I want to, but I don't want to lie to you. But the answer is, what is your circumstances? What is your end result? And just like you said, if you're trying the waters and you kind of maybe sort of can see something but not sure, do the first deal in your name. no sweat. It's going to go, with the income tax that you have, whichever job that you have, your tax will be affected that way. Very minor and things like that. But the moment you're going onto the second deal, beep, 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 alarm, let's just do
Yes.
something about where we are. So that is a fantastic, fantastic approach to things. So I'm a pom pom girl in all of these things because I've been through the war here. So I love it when you do. I love it when you talk the same.
We
Cool
would
stuff.
swear we're doing the same thing, hey, and we've seen the same things.
But it's amazing stuff though, and like you said, the property world is so small. It is
Yes.
the moment you get into one person. I mean, I met somebody not so long ago. We did a coaching call together, more like a discovery call together. And he started naming people. And I'm thinking, is he name dropping to impress me or what was he doing? And after a while, I'm like, you know what? 95% of those people that you spoke about, we all were in the same classroom. But as
That's
I
exactly.
as I walk away with that one. So the person that I named Colleen, because Colleen told me, Coach, not me asking questions. They asked the question, can one add or delete clauses on the offer to purchase?
It depends. So prior to signature, definitely you can cross out and amend and change it, provided that the other party then accepts the amendments. I wouldn't recommend ever crossing out and changing something on an agreement. If you start copying and emailing that, it looks crappy. So agree to the amendments, retype it into the OTP, and then sign it with the new clauses in, definitely. Post signature, so once the agreement's been signed, um, no, not just like that. Now you need to do an addendum. An addendum would be required to change the terms of an agreement that's already been agreed to. Obviously, both parties will have to sign that and agree to that, but it will have to be recorded in a addendum to the agreement. Make sure when you do an addendum that you don't cause ambiguity to any one of the other clauses. So don't amend one clause and then screwing with the entire agreement. So just read through the whole thing to make sure that the amendment you are doing, you actually record every clause that will be affected by this amendment in the addendum in which you're affecting the amendment. There was a lot of A words there. Like it was the mother of all alliterations, and now even alliteration starts with an A.
We see you. And certainly last but not least, just before, sorry, I see a private message. Just before we go on to Kerry's question, which is the last one, somebody asked, what is a juristic person?
That's a lovely question. In our
I
law,
thought so too.
we only have two kinds of two entities that is seen as a juristic person, and this is a true juristic person is a company, so a PTY, or a closed corporation, a CC. Remember, CCs are dying. They weren't recorded in our new Companies Act. So please don't buy a CC. Please don't do anything with a CC. And if you have a CC, please get you an attorney to convert it for you to a PTY. It's not an expensive process, quite easy. But those are the only two true juristic entities in South African law. A trust is not a juristic entity, a company or a CC. However, I love the law because everything, it's like a simple answer, and then however is my favorite word. So, however, in terms of the Consumer Protection Act, the Consumer Protection Act defines a juristic person as more entities, and I'll tell you which it is. So, only in the context of the Consumer Protection Act do we have more things forming a juristic person, which is a company, a CC, which is the real only juristic persons, but then also a trust, an association, a partnership, and a body corporate. So in terms of the CPA, those 6 things is also deemed to be a touristic entity. That felt like an exam question. I think I got 100%.
100%. We see you. We see you. And the person I so nicely named Colleen is Samuel. Samuel, ne? Now I'm calling Colleen Samuel also. The things that happened today. Now, moving on to the last question for you today, Silna. Again, thank you so much. You've given us extra time. So I thank you for the extra time. Kerry would like to know about the rights to a trust fund in a marriage in community of property. You already did in the water with the marriage in community of property. Let me not be naughty. Okay, I take that back. No, I don't. So I would like to know about the rights to a trust fund in a marriage in community of property. Can your partner take 50% of the trust or business during a divorce if the trusts are in other beneficiaries?
Sorry, I'm running a few scenarios through my head.
I don't blame you. While you're running that scenario, you know, one of the things I learned about marriage and community of property, I just want to kind of throw in a perspective, right? And when I say we, I'm going to use a bit of a generalization. So please pardon me, ladies and gents. You know, we are socialized into believing that when we get married, if we talk about anything outside of community of property, it means that we have an intention of leaving the person that we married. And I really think one of the social ills that really ill equips us as young people is that we get into these social norms and we actually believe it. So I truly believe one needs to have that conversation, whether you are getting married at the age of 55 or whether you're getting married at the age of 20. Having the conversation about getting married in or outside of community of property is so very important. I remember when TJ and I started having that conversation, one of the things he says to me, Jen, whatever you do, just don't bring this conversation up around family. And of course, being the headstrong somebody that I am, I'm like, why not? Because at the end of the day, I mean, babe, we both business people and we both were in business ventures when we got together. Somebody's got to protect stuff. So at the end of the day, whether we married, when we married out of community of property, we can do it with accrual. And for those that have got a limited mind thinking, we'll tell them it's community of property because we're doing it with accrual. And so we had that sort of conversation. And I find that there's so many people, especially in the generation that is born late 70s, early 80s, we get into this moral dilemma. And again, ladies and gents, it's a bit of a generalization, but really just be careful of that moral dilemma versus what is happening right now. I mean, we are in economies of making money that people would not have believed ever possible. I mean, so you can see some of the youngsters that are on YouTube, they're 4 years old, they get 1 million views because some of our children who are 6 years old are watching them day in and day out, and you're just thinking this child is getting money more than me because this child that I gave birth to is using my data to give that one money on YouTube. Anyway, I do rant and rave a little bit, but yeah, I just thought I would throw that one out there. Over to you, Silna.
Thank you. Kerry, so I am a pain when it comes to terminology. So I just want to help you out here. Avoid the term trust fund. Trust fund is more something that you would use in the context of Paris Hilton. A trust fund is not necessarily a trust. So I think you're trying to talk about a trust, and that's not a trust fund. That is a trust. So a trust could very well have an account, but that's not a trust fund. So just be careful of the terminology there. I think you're talking about a trust. And a trust then means you have trustees and you have beneficiaries. And the trust that you are talking about is obviously an inter vivos trust, meaning that all the parties are still alive when this trust is formed. A trust like that will be governed by the trust deed. But the property that forms part of the joint estate of a marriage in community of property is regulated by the Matrimonial Properties Act. So some things form part of that and some things don't. This is one of the reasons why when you rent a property, whether you're the tenant or the landlord, you don't need consent from your spouse, because you're not causing any, you're not encumbering the estate in any way. So that is specifically excluded from the joint estate in terms of the Matrimonial Properties Act. A trust, a company, a CC, whatever, it could form part of your joint estate, but it might not. So let's take, for instance, my business. I have a law firm. In terms of the Property Practitioners Act, only attorneys, only admitted attorneys may be directors and shareholders, and every shareholder must be a director and every director must be a shareholder. This means if I am married in community of property and my spouse is not an admitted attorney as well, my shares in my company cannot form part of the joint estate. However, if you have a trust and the trust does not specifically exclude the joint estate, it could form part of the joint estate. I agree with Gina in every sense of what she said, but I just want to lawyer him a level up. Marrying in community of property is not ideal, not because you might get divorced, but you might be happily married forever, but somebody will die. That's the one thing I know about life. Tax and death is sure.
Death, yeah.
And if you're married in community of property, the effect on the surviving spouse is devastating, because that joint estate basically gets frozen for the time until it is finalized, not completely, but it's a mess up. So if you can have, so that's the negative. The positive on not being married in community of property is now you have two separate estates. It's almost like you have two separate vehicles. If the one breaks, at least we can go with the other one. Same with estates. So there are so much benefit in being married out of community of property, because there are donations allowed between spouses that we do not see in any other business form. I just called marriage a business form. I'm such a hopeless romantic, guys. Don't tell Milan how romantic I am. but marriage can be very handy, used as part of your investment vehicle setup. So if you can use that, once again in consultation with the attorney that you choose to partner with, it can be a very handy, very helpful thing. But to your question, Kerry, I love the fact that you started and we're closing with your question as well. We full circle. But it can very well end up like that. But like I said, it depends on so much. It depends on the kind of company, the kind of property, the joint estate. What else is part of the joint estate? When you get divorced, how did you settle? How did you deal with that? And on that topic, if you are married in community of property and you are getting divorced, guys, the rule in divorce is stay out of court until you have a signed settlement agreement. There are brilliant mediators out there. Our court rules are suddenly requiring us to do an affidavit to say the parties attempted to mediate, not only in family law matters, in all matters that we go to court with. Get a mediator, mediate and get a signed settlement agreement before you approach court. And I say this once again with the most respect. Attorneys love divorces because the old rule of the wife gets the kids, the husband, what does he get again? The au pair, right? And then the attorney the house. Oh, the car. The husband gets the car. I forgot what he got. But, and then the attorney gets the house. That little joke is unfortunately not as jokey or as funny as we would like to believe. Stay away from court, stay away from painful litigation in a divorce. Use a effective mediator. I've personally had the joy of going through a divorce, so I'm an experienced. It's been long enough that I can do a little divorce dance. Oh, that's probably why. I think if you can do a divorce dance, that's how you know you've done the right thing. But if you go through a divorce, it's already painful and not something pleasant to go through. Don't let litigation attorneys make it worse for you and protract it over a time period. Kerry, obviously, I'm saying this because you don't ask a question like that unless there's some detail of, friends and family or something that would make you ask a question like that. So just some practical divorce advice from somebody who's only done one divorce in her entire life. And that was the reason I started doing evictions. A true story. I traded with my business partner, who's also, fun fact, my ex-husband. When we started the firm, I said, I will never do another divorce. And he had 2 evictions and I had a divorce. And he said, you will take the divorce from me if I take the 2 evictions. Here we are, 12 years later. I'm only doing evictions and still no divorces. So, but this is just what I've seen in practice. Kerry, that was a very long story, but I hope it did answer the question.
No, I certainly believe that you nailed it. And also, many things said in jest are often true. So I want to add to that, there's a friend of mine as well. I never believed it was possible. I think if she wasn't such a trusted friend, and she's always given me permission to share this with whoever could listen, so I'm not at least breaking confidentiality. She was marrying community of property. Fast forward, they were going to go through a divorce, but prior to the divorce they were buying a property together. And when they bought this property together, that's when she learned about her husband being blacklisted. He couldn't go and get any sort of credit from the bank, and so 2 years into this marriage she thought she married. Who did she marry? So she gave me that kind of feel of like, who did I marry? Like 2 years later, who does that? Who doesn't share that information, right? So it impacted them getting a property. So when she had gone through to a divorce lawyer to find out, no, it was a family lawyer. What can she do? He said either you go to the high court, you pay 15,000, or you could do quick and dirty. And she says, what is a quick and dirty? He says, divorcing today, tomorrow go back to Home Affairs and sign, but make sure you've signed an antenuptial prior to that. So when she told me that, I swear I thought it was something out of a movie. She did it, and she got married again after that directly to him. I mean, they believed they were forever, right? And so she was able to go and get them a property, and they stayed in their property for a while and whatnot. But sadly, with too many hojos that came up and life happening, she really literally for true went through a divorce. So she went through a divorce twice with the same person. One, she was fighting for love in her home, and the second one, whatever she was fighting for. But to say, I'm saying that to say life can get really, really complicated at some stage. And in as much as we're trying to add a slightly bit of humor into it, it's just to make the conversation a little bit easier. But nonetheless, Silna, I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate the fact that I can call on you, and like you just come through and you add a massive amount of value to everybody that's following this particular video, whether they are on YouTube or whether they're on Zoom. It's really just been an honor listening to you, sharing with us, and giving us guidelines on what we can do, the things that we need to look out for. I cherish that. I shall remember what you said before we really went live. I shall abuse the friendship, but in our case it's not abuse, it's using friendship as far as we can. In the chats you'll be able to see a lot of people coming through saying thank you very much. They really, really appreciate your time. And I'm certain that like with everything that you shared here tonight, they're going to go back to the drawing board and think about what you have shared. So any departing words or any words of wisdom before you leave us?
No, I'm so glad I could add some value. Thank you for your kind messages, and thanks for always your kind words, Gina. I really enjoyed my time with you guys. Thank you so much for having me, and I hope that you take some value out of this, especially the constant. There is never a one size fits all answer to anything in this world. But I really wish you all the absolute best. Get the right people to journey with, get the right friends that you can abuse, because this is, in fairness, life is tough enough as it is. If we do business together and if we grow together, we grow the country together and we grow the economy together. And let's be fair, this country needs a lot of growth. So let's make it absolutely brilliant, and all the best to all of you. I hope you make so much money that you don't know what to do with it. And if you don't know what to do with it, invest in low-cost housing. We need housing for the people in our country.
Awesome sauce. Thank you so much, Silna. You have a good one,
Pleasure.
and we will chat soon.
Thank you. Have a lovely evening, guys. Enjoy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Awesome stuff, ladies and gents. You heard it directly from Silna. Being in law, she wouldn't just come here and blow anyone's trumpet for that matter. And when I was talking about, I think it was in day one, surround yourself with a power team. I remember as we just got onto the video just now, I'm like, thank you so much that you were able to come. And I'm like, thank you so much, especially because it was so last minute. And she says, of course, this is what we do in our friendship. We abuse each other. And that's where the abuse joke has come in. And for the fact that in my power team, I can have somebody like Silna on speed dial saying, hey, lady, am I doing the right thing here? Or can you please help me? Or, some sort of, I can throw a FYI, or rather, what do you, not a FYI, what do you call that? A help signal. SOS, I can throw a SOS. Cool stuff. So, ladies and gents, that was Silna. We went way over time with her. However, I am okay with that. I trust that you're okay with that. I want to introduce to you somebody else this evening as well. I met her. She'll tell you the story. I met her last year, not face to face though. I think I met her for the first time face to face this year. All the time we've been on lockdown and we've been talking from this side of the computer to that side of the computer. That's the beauty of technology. The reason I requested Colleen's presence here today is that last year, as I shared with you, I did this training, and if I can be quite blunt, and I trust that this doesn't offend anybody. If it does, it's okay. The training so far, let me ask this question before I make my statements. So far, we are a little over the 50% route, right? We at the end of today, we will be 75% in. So far, I want to hear from you, honestly. I don't want anyone trying to butter me up, or I'm not going to be offended if you give some crazy amount. But up until this point, how much would you have paid for a cause like this? I want you to be brutally honest. Whether you tell me 200 Rand, 2000 Rand, 500 Rand, I want to hear from you in the chat and in the comments below. And while I ask you that question, and you're going to drop that, right? The reason I say this is that when I truly believe, if I'm giving from the abundance of who I am, I need to come and pull out all the stops. So last year for the 4 days, we met online. And this is really where I got to knowing Colleen. Colleen was one of those people that looked forward to homework every day. And that blew my mind from here to Timbuktu and back. And what I really just appreciated is that Colleen didn't just sit on information. So today, Colleen's going to come and share with you what she learned last year during COVID, what she did prior to that, because I also don't want to give this 1 day course that I'm doing over 4 days all the glory. She did have some measure of experience, right? But she also had her own obstacles. So I want to hear from Colleen. Colleen, just share what you are comfortable with. Please don't feel coerced or pushed into a corner to share what you don't want to. I know you don't, but I'm just disclaimer anyway. yeah, share with everybody. The platform is yours.
Can you hear me first of all? Can you hear me, Jen?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, that's about this. So, good evening, everybody. So first of all, I don't do the whole face-to-face and technology thing. So, yeah. So the first time doing that was actually meeting Jen, and as she said, we met more or less the same time as now, which was basically a year back. And it was like, let's first see what property investing is all about, getting the background of all of this. So first of all, it's is property investing for everybody? That's the first thing. So then it's, what is it that you know about property investing? Is it something for you? So it was just the thing of, everybody's doing property investing. It's just one of those things. And then I saw this Facebook ad. Then it was this color chickie on Facebook in her car. And it was like, just one of those property investing adverts again. Must be something again, like, just that everybody's doing. And then I thought, let me just actually, pop in here and see what it's all about. Then COVID happened, and Jen was actually giving the same course as what you guys are doing now. So we actually popped in with Jen for this training. And lo and behold, it actually changed our thinking. And the reason for that was because we were also on the legacy course. What we learned in legacy was like something way over our heads. When we actually left that course, it was more like, can we actually do this? And when we met Jen, she actually dissected this whole thing and she made it real. Real meaning that you're actually speaking real life stories to people like us that have never ever actually been in property investing. And that actually changed our mindset. So, and I'm talking about our, meaning my sister and I. So we actually business partners in this. This is where we actually then decided, you know what? Then property investing is then for us, because then that allowed us to take the first step. Because even after our training, we were still like very much like, no, we can't do this thing. It's not for us. It's actually for people with money. It's actually for people that have been in investing for however long. It's for all the, property gurus and stuff like that. So we will never, ever be able to do this. From that point, so what you guys are learning now is how to actually identify properties, what is your hurdles that you're going to face and how to get over them. And that is exactly what we did, that we went to carry through. We got over that first hurdle of that we can't. We got our first property, and that one there happened during COVID. So we actually saw that it was a good return on investment, but for that point in time, for during COVID, we were actually going to lose out. So we actually dropped the idea for during COVID. As soon as we were able to hit the streets again after COVID, we got ourselves a property. So this again, so I'm sure Jen has already got to the point where she says, do not do emotional buying. Be very savvy about how you actually purchase your property. So this property was a good investment on ROI. But when we made a mistake was that then, yes, we were like emotionally attached to this property because it was so cute. And at that point, we didn't think that location is going to be our biggest hurdle. Ideal property, great return on investment, but the location sucked. because this location was opposite Hillbrow. So it's only for a certain buyer to actually take this property. But yay, lo and behold, we managed to sell it.
Yeah.
But now the only thing is,
Sorry, Colleen, I want to interrupt at this point. Do you remember the conversation we had, the coaching call we had around the numbers, when I was asking about, because you brought it up, so I don't want to put too much salt somewhere, but when I was talking about, so what is the exit strategy? And you kind of pussyfooted around a bit with the rental. And I said, no, but what is the proper rental? Because these are not proper numbers. And this is where in my opinion, from what you're talking about now, is when you're talking about emotional buying, because you answered me and you didn't answer me. Extemanet. Cool, continue.
Yeah, well, look, we did the numbers with the exit strategy of rentals, okay? And when we did the numbers, we said for rentals, this is not going to be a good idea. But we already had it in our mind that we were actually going to be able to flip it quicker than having to have to go as far as rental. And if we did actually take a rental strategy, it would have worked to a certain extent. But for us, rental at the moment is not it's not our strategy. I'm gonna tell it to you straight, coach. We don't want to do rentals.
With you, no problem at all. But
We don't want to do rentals.
But would you agree and share with everybody that it is vital to have that exit strategy for just in case?
Yeah.
Because you near gave me a heart attack. And when you messaged me the other day and you said it's sold, I did a young dance in the kitchen. I'm just putting it out there.
Listen, we didn't only just do a young dance. We just every day say thank you.
Exactly. But it's an awesome experience to share, though, right?
Yeah. And actually, if we did do a rental, we would have still actually got a positive ROI. Mm-hmm. Actually. But then for a positive ROI, we would have had to have 3 tenants in that unit, but which would have also not been a problem. But then the only problem again at the end of the day is the living standard, because there was only 1 bathroom, which was only a shower. So when you want to start making something comfortable for multi-tenants, you have to think about all of that. And I suppose that is some of the stuff that the guys will then learn at the later stage, as when you start diversifying and when you start doing multi-tenants, how comfortable you're supposed to be making your tenants at the end of the day.
Correct.
So yes, most importantly is running your numbers. And that we can't stress enough, is that at the end of the day, your numbers have to add up. So actually what I actually did on that spreadsheet, we actually took our numbers that should we not sell within 3 months, what would it be either in 4, 5, or 6 months? So that when you're stuck at the end of the day, then you know, by the time I hit either 4 or 5 months, I'm about to lose. So actually do your numbers right up until at least 6 months. Then you know when you're going to be actually running into minus. And this is what we're grateful for now, that we've almost reached our 6 months. But at least we didn't. And we even said, even if we break even, but as long as you're not putting in money at the end of the day and running into minus. So that was a big whoop whoop.
Awesome stuff. So how do you feel now, 1 year later? You finally got to that point where you actually closed a deal. This is a desire that you and your sister wanted to have, because I remember the day we met in Broad Acres when you said we just wanted to make sure that we can go from an end-to-end process with this thing, that we I think the word you used was that we could believe the process or something like that. I stand corrected. How do you feel at this point, Colleen?
So at this point, from taking, we took all this information in, and we did all of this education. Let me tell you, the taking in of the education was actually more nerve-wracking than actually doing. So when you've got all of this information and you're thinking, can I do it or can't I do it? Rather go do it. Because then you find your thinking and your doing actually do not marry each other. Because when you start thinking, then you're overthinking, and you're thinking of stuff of, if I'm going to do this, it might not work like that. Or if I do that, I might lose out, or I might not do it right. Rather do it. And while you're doing it, you've got a fantastic coach in Jen. And let me tell you, like she's saying, she abuses Solna. We abused her too.
It's the friendship thing. We do these things.
Yeah. So in many ways, whether you need personal coaching, whether you need the business coaching, whether it's the property coaching, we got all of that from Jen, because when we were stuck in a rut, and whether it was on a personal level or whether it was now actually doing the property, we always got the answers that we needed. And I'm sure, as you've noticed now, Jen will always say, let me first ask you a question. So she needs you first to clarify what it is that you're thinking, what's the back of your mind, where you actually see yourself at, before she actually answers you. So that she can understand the dynamic of where you're at that point, if you've actually lost yourself, or if you maybe just fumbling for a reason that you actually maybe have fear. So that is why she'll always first ask you, let me first ask you this one question.
I see you, ne? I see you. No, Colleen, I really, really appreciate your time. I know that you would have come in at 7:30. I mean, come on to share at 7:30, but we were clearly having lots of fun asking Silna many, many questions. So thank you also, just for chilling around and sharing with us. I found the importance of you sharing so that others that are here, I don't necessarily need anyone to continue with me in coaching, right? Because you and I, we had gone through lots of coaching, with the rest of your team, Molatelo and Lisecha. Actually, we should have had a reuniting moment here. It would have been applicable, eh? I wasn't thinking, it's the COVID thing. But I mean, I don't necessarily need anyone to continue with me with coaching. But the value that you'll be able to get from these 4 days, if you just go back and you listen to the content, I'm not going to take it down from YouTube. I don't care whether 2 months from today I advertise that I'm going to run a class and it's a paid class, but I'm not going to take it down from YouTube, because my endeavor is that if I can at least influence one person in the right direction and gear them up to a property mindset, then my job here is done. Colleen, I wonder, do you have any maybe parting words to encourage everybody with, or is there some thoughts you want to leave behind with everyone?
So like you're saying, as long as one person walks away, with a coaching mindset. I mean, if we take from the coaching sessions that we had, there was 3 of us, and all 3 of us are still there. And what I've noticed from all the other groups, which is like the ad hoc ones, I've noticed there's like a few of the other guys where we're talking about Muhammad, we're talking about Renee. All of those guys are always active, because at the end of the day, one thing that we should know is that property investing is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's lots and lots of hard work. You have to be in the moment. You have to be committed. You have to be accountable. And at the end of the day, taking a mindset of that property investing is only for the rich. Actually, it's not. It's actually how much you are prepared to invest into this journey. So it's not always about having money upfront. And yes, everybody will tell you that, with property investing, using other people's money and stuff like that, it's not as simple. You have to be savvy about it, and you have to be really educated about how you go about it. And most importantly, while you're on this journey, actually start now. Don't actually get up tomorrow and say, oh, this is so hard. Oh, where do we start? And I'm sure the first things that Jen has taught you is how to actually identify properties. Start there every day. Actually just go, even if it's like 3 or 4 properties. Just go and familiarize yourself with the areas, familiarize yourself with what's happening around you. And at the moment, there's so many people, even though it's sad, there's lots of people that are having to sell their properties because of the time that we're going through at the moment. So you are able to pick up something that will be worth your while at the end of the day. And I mean, like us now, we ecstatic. The attorney got the OTP documents today. So we're actually now looking for our next property. And we already looking on TPN. What are the investor areas at the moment? So take in whatever Jen imparts. Her knowledge is second to none. And like she said, it's not always about the money. I mean, we invested in a property coaching journey that was over the 120,000. But for the type of information that we got from Jen, this actually propelled us to start our property journey, and not the 120,000 education that we got. Because that education that we got will actually now become beneficial from the real life experiences that you're going to get. So actually start now and get your feet in your hands dirty. And what you've heard now from Jen and Silna as well is your power team. That is important. I mean, like, we've now just actually identified our conveyancing attorney that we're going to be using now moving forward. So now already we've got a conveyancing attorney, we've got our coach, we've got somebody that we've identified that's in construction. We've identified the guys that will be able to do our COCs. So just start somewhere. And and it is very important to actually have a real estate agent on your side.
Absolutely. Please, can you mention that you won?
Yeah, I actually wasn't going to mention it, but now that you've mentioned it, fine.
Which areas do you specialize in, Colleen?
Okay, I specialize in the East Rand, but we are allowed to venture out into whichever area. So I'll just give you a quick background. I started my real estate journey last year, July, after lockdown, actually. And we've actually found that this actually does help us a lot in our property investment journey. So all in all, now that makes us property entrepreneurs. And we're still not told you that it's very important to couple yourself with a real estate agent. This we've learned why. It's very important when it comes to the legal dynamics. of property. So with that said, I've done 5 properties or 6 now since starting, and every property has come with its own challenges. So if you're doing this by yourself, boy oh boy, like Selna told you, you're going to actually get yourself into a bug rap if you do it by yourself. So yeah, so this has actually helped us a lot being in that industry.
Fantastic stuff. So as a real estate agent, what I'm hearing you say, since your journey has started, it's not been even 1 year properly. As a real estate agent, you've closed 5 to 6 deals. As a property investor, you have now closed your first deal, and you're feeling quite like Supergirl right now.
Oh yes.
Wonderful stuff. That is the
Yep.
most amazing stuff to hear. Colleen, I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate you coming to share with everybody, giving them just a bit of a real life experience. And you know, I trust that everyone takes what they hear from you, and they'll be able to run with it. Because that's my motto, is that the only way to know that you know is to do. So when you do, you solidify what you know, and then you hit a wall, and then now you start finding out what is that other part that I don't know. So awesome sauce.
Thank you to everybody, and thanks for having me here. Hope we can catch up with everybody here, and that we all have success stories from Luyelo, Nari, Tandazale, Samuel, Lasiba, and Kerry, and that you actually don't give up. Don't give up. It's tough, it's hard, but guess what? Once you're in it, you're not in it to lose. You will reach greater heights moving forward. So take the bull by the horns and let's ride them together.
Awesome sauce. Absolutely.
Thanks,
Yeah.
guys.
Right. Thanks. There's a lot of messages for you as well in the chat, so you can also have a look at that. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. My idea is to influence you in the right direction of taking action. You know, I am not here to say, "Hey, follow me." Ha ha. No, I'm here to say, if anything, can we put the truth on the table? If anything, can we put out the information? And as Colleen rightfully said, I mean, when I look at the property training and the property coaching money that we invested, it truly was an investment. Some days I would cry as to say, why did I spend over 100,000? But then there's other days when I look around and I just think, oh, Genevieve, come on. In this last 5 years, you've made that 100,000 over and over and over. So get off, get off crying. So earlier, I did ask the question, what do you think this cause would be valued at? And Lehlogonolo said 6K, Lerato said 10K. On a normal basis, I charge 2,000 Rand for a virtual class for right through the day, just as I would have charged for a face-to-face class. And the idea is, it's not about, for me, making bucket loads of money. I make bucket loads of money somewhere else. I do have my own way of doing property, and within the property space, I still make money. But I also do small other things that make me happy. I mean, I'm a tester. I do some testing online. I do some SEO management on YouTube. So no one day is the same day for me. But nonetheless, let me not go down that way. So Colleen says, if anything, this is real life with Jen, not duping you into money making scheme. No, of course not. So ladies and gents, what I'm going to do in light of time, I want to find out from you, where are you now? If you are happy where you are now, I'd like you to drop yes in the comments and in the chat, right? So that at least I can see you happy. We answered your question. Do I see any yeses? Do I see any yeses? Are we just waiting for technology? It's slightly slow. Or are you guys still dumbstruck with all the information you got this evening? Cool stuff. I see the yeses coming in. This evening has been a lot. I agree with you, Kerry. It has been a lot, eh? But yes, I'm happy. Awesome stuff. So I see there's quite a few of you that agree that sure you're happy. What I would like to do though is just talk about finance and the business and tax and keep it to 10 minutes, actually 15 minutes. The lessons through my deal and running numbers, I want to keep that to tomorrow because tonight, as Kerry has also rightfully said, this evening has been a lot to process. And the reason I would like just to close off this evening by talking about the finance component as well as the creative finance component with the business and tax stuff, I know I can condense it because we've been talking about it repetitively, all right? And it's also a confirmation of a lot of what Silna has said. And now and then Colleen had touched on it. All right, happy and grateful from the info from Silna and from Colleen. Perfect stuff. Is this meeting downloadable? Lerato, yes. So what happens is overnight, because it's a long video, the YouTube is still processing it, right? To make sure that there's no harmful content, okay? And also to make sure that the YouTube algorithm does its thing to get, the video out to more people. But usually I find by the next day at about 1 to 3 in the afternoon, then you are able to download it. So absolutely it's downloadable. I would then recommend, as Lorata would do, download the sessions if you don't want to come back online to see them each time, and just get yourself going because again, this is a lot of information. There's confirmation for you in some aspects, and in some aspects it's brand new information. So I would love that you are cognizant thereof. So can I get a yes from you guys if we can still continue till 9 and your brain is not going to explode? Cool stuff. So the yeses do come in. When one comes in, then the rest just come in. Okay, cool stuff. I'm happy for that. So let's go quickly into it, all right? Yesterday, as we ended, I did share with you what we're going to do is touch on the finance components. One of the finance components that I'd like to touch on tonight is that a general finance. People will, in the beginning of the training on Sunday night, we spoke about how will we finance a deal. Many people agree that there's the bank. So you can go via a bond originator, or you can go directly to the bank. The advantage of going via a bond originator is as follows. The bond originator, you complete one form. They send it like to 10 to 12 different places. I once upon a time interviewed a bond originator. And if you want to understand a little bit more about that, you can just go back onto my YouTube channel and search my videos and just say bond originator, and you'll be able to see and hear from a bond originator herself. And with the bond originator or / going to the bank, you can either apply for a bond or you can go straight in for equity. People that have bought property potentially 10 years ago, they may have bought this property for 200,000. As the years have gone by, there's been appreciation on that property. And today in the property market, that property may just be valued, say, for example, 400,000. This is an example. I mean, there are some properties that literally in a short space of time quadrupled. So I'm just giving an example. So you could have bought it for 200,000. 10 years later, it's now worth 400,000. You can go to the bank and then refinance and be able to tap into that equity. Some people use credit cards only for short-term strategies like a flip. The flips, when you go in and you are going to be doing things like renovation, refurb, repair, right? When you're going to be doing that, it's easier to constantly go to the shops and swipe. But obviously being cognizant, like we shared yesterday, that you need to have your budgets in place for that. So people tend to use their credit card. So once the flip is taken place, all that money is put back into the credit card because for certain, for the banks, you'll find that the credit card you get up to 55 days interest free. So up to 55 days interest free money can be used. There's others that go into short-term flexible flexi investments. Like, you know, there used to be the 30-day, 60-day, 90-day accounts. I don't know if those investments accounts are still around. They've evolved into so many different ways where over a period of time you're just saving and you're putting money into an account, right? There's others that decide, hey, I want to put together a stokvel or some sort of consortium so that we all put our monies together. And like on day one, when we spoke about raising funds, you'll always find that somebody that is raising funds, they want to look immediately as to how could us as a conglomerate put money together to go and buy an investment property. And then for the investors out there that really enjoy, I want to actually go onto their website. The investors that are out there that enjoy, what do you call this? The inner city. Oh, my brain just stood still there for a moment, right? There's a place called Tough. Okay. So Tough, what you will find, again, I'm not associated. Oh, sorry, I just typed Tough in the wrong place. I'm not associated to Tough in any shape, form, or manner. This is information that I'm sharing. We have used Tough for a deal, one of our deals that we have got in Boksburg. It is a mixed use deal. We've got shops in the front and we've got residential apartments at the back and on top. No, at the back. No, this one is just at the back. And we had gone through with Tough. And you'll find that where some of the banks will decline you, Tough will be able to assist you, especially if you found those very rundown buildings type of vibe and you like the inner city life and you really want to be part of that restoration. You can go to Tough's website, learn more about them. For those of you that may be interested in what we call a back room, there is Umastandi. Umastandi is also, I've never used them because we don't have any back rooms. So in some of the township investing, a township is anywhere. I learned from a town planner, Stanton, Bryanston, all those fancy places that people gravitate to. Those are also called townships. So in the word township for this particular company, what they actually do is, you know, you go through a qualification process, you understand what the feasibility study looks like, and they help you with quite a bit of information, but more predominantly with the affordable housing. So if you heard nicely when Silna was exiting, she earlier said, wherever possible, if we can really just push into affordable housing, that is something that our country really needs. Umastandi is there to help a lot of the property entrepreneurs grow and really take them through this particular journey of doing township sort of investments. So that's another way to do investments, right? So I share that information just in case somewhere along the line it is an interest point for you. So that is Tough and Umastandi that I shared with you. So that is the general ways of financing that you will find and you will come across. Now, there's another term that we call creative finance. From the beginning, all the property wholesaler enthusiasts have been asking a lot of these questions. So sourcing / wholesaling, it is really the same words. Sourcing is taken from the UK, so it's very much UK-based terminology. Wholesaling is very much a United States-based terminology, but it basically means the same thing. So within the creative finance space, a sourcing agent literally goes on behalf of an investor to find a property investing opportunity for the capital-rich investor because he's time poor. And as a sourcing agent, you are time rich and you are able to go and get a deal so that you can leverage the capital from the investor because you used your time so that you can meet at a common place. Now, with Silna, she touched on wholesaling a bit. It is a very contentious subject. To be quite frank with you guys, at the beginning, before the lockdown, I actually joined Keller Williams so that I could upscale my sourcing business, right? I wanted to take it to the next level. In February, yes, February. No, it was the 1st of March. 1st of March 2020, I joined Keller Williams. I signed an appointment letter. I knew what I was after. I was after that FFC, the Fidelity Fund Certificate. That's what it stands for. I was after that FFC because I wanted to take my sourcing business to the next level and be on the right side of the law with the property practitioner, the Property Practitioners Act. And I feel that that is a good way to really just safeguard yourself in what you're going to be doing. So as a sourcing agent, that was just a side note. So as a sourcing agent, all the stuff that we've been talking about, everything that we've been talking about since day one is something that you need to know. You need to know your area. You must research and become an expert in that area of choice. I found in the beginning, first we started off with Windsor West, then we kind of dabbled here, and then we kind of dabbled there. Eventually, our breakthrough came in Kempton Park. That was only because we were online and I was looking for that property that was not going to be more than, you remember yesterday when I was saying I didn't want to go over 200,000 because I just felt like if we lose this, at least it won't be that much. In hindsight, that was really, again, very limited thinking, but it was fear-based thinking. So after the Kempton Park deals that had come through, because there was a few more that came through the same real estate agents in Kempton Park, that was kind of the last time I was in Kempton Park. I then came back home, which is the West Rand, and I literally made the West Rand my area of choice. So why would you want to focus on an area? Because each day you're going to be going out, whether you're driving for dollars, which is driving around the neighborhood, understanding what goes into this property, finding properties and things like that. Or if you've done the homework that I shared with you about looking at that video of the 9 strategies, I sent that one to you this morning on email. So there's different ways you're just going to consistently grow yourself. I mean, there was one mad day I decided to go into Facebook, the Property Practitioners Group, and I said, I'm looking for fix up properties in the West Rand. I got leads for days. And for me, this is where I've also been able to connect with a lot of real estate agents that have got fixed up type of properties. As a sourcing agent, you need to have a great power team. One of my power team members you met this evening, if I need some direction or I'd like some advice and some things like that, I ask Silna. There's other times I would ask Bruno because Bruno Samau was my landlord. At one stage, I had my offices in Sunning Hill and it was part of Bruno's office. So anyone that came to see me in my office was like, Jen, what are you doing in an attorney's office? I'm like, no, this is just my landlord. Come through to my office. I kind of found that the power of association, more so because we in the property business, really, really worked. And then after 6 months, I said, the office is doing really well. However, I've just found that everybody doesn't want to come to the office. So I had my office in Fairland, which was kind of like a head office, a bit of a brainstorming area. But my space in Sunning Hill was a lot more on teaching and sharing and bringing Bruno in whenever we need to. So I grew my power team, and my power team has eventually become friends of mine, like Colleen and her sister. When they call me, I'm like, okay, cool, girl, let's just jump onto the call. Let's do what we need to do. So eventually, over time, the people that you start working with become your extended family. As a sourcing agent, you really need to understand a property investor, what they're looking for. Are they looking for capital? Are they looking for income? Or are they just looking for cash generating strategies? And I can differentiate this, right? The capital, which is the once off, you could look at that as a flip. The income, that passive income as a rental income. But there's cash generating strategies like serviced accommodation, where some of them property investors are just looking for a rent-to-rent contract so that they are able to sublet. You'll find that some of them are looking for the serviced accommodation where they just want to rent out this particular property, from a landlord and then subletted to students or subletted on Airbnb. So there's many ways to kill a cat, and a sourcing agent needs to be savvy enough to be able to understand these different strategies. But I always say start off with the ones that you know and grow over time, because too much information leads to analysis paralysis. Finding good deals is important. Getting a good build on your side is absolutely vital. We spoke about that yesterday, and how eventually after a while I started creating more than one builder friend, so that I don't get that, so Jen, what? Because eventually when this deal is sold, there's a thin line of whether the investor's going to take your person or they're going to go with their person. But I always push hard to see if I can promote the builder that is gone to give me the quotes, and keep them true. Set up a basic contract, which is your non-disclosure agreement. That is the opening of the conversation, as Silna eloquently shared. Every situation calls for something different. The opening of the conversation is the NDA, to say, let's talk. Because you could be sourcing a deal, and then next best thing, this deal translates to this person being a, a joint venture partner of sorts. And joint venture is the next point. But one of the things somebody did ask, Jen, how do we find investors? Prior to COVID, I'm going to show you a quick snippet. Prior to COVID, I was a SAPN Premier member. I've spoken about this in videos as well. I think this is one of the videos that I'd shared. And this is what I would do to sell a deal.
And the powerful is 14. Let's read those numbers in numerical order. 1, 4, 13, 14.
Hi, sorry, Liseba. Could you please put yourself on mute? Oh, okay, thank you so much. Cool stuff. So as you guys can see, I was clear, I was succinct, I knew who I was looking for, and I knew the deals that I'd found will fall under one of these different categories. So the whole aim of the matter is that when I was able to see that it falls under multiple categories, I was then able to say, okay, cool. These are the types of people that I'm looking for. And they already knew if there's 4 strategies, any one of these other 3 can be an exit strategy. The next one is joint ventures. Still in the touch on joint ventures. The most important thing I believe you need to understand about a joint venture is, what are you bringing to the partnership? So a joint venture goes something like this. One brings money, the other one brings the deal, and you can come together. Or sometimes one will say, I'm bringing the deal and the renovation cost. Now you go to the bank and put this particular property on a bond. So you'll be able to know what you're bringing to the partnership for that particular partnership to work. And Luyolo, this is at this point where a sourcing agreement could now eventually turn into a joint venture agreement, And these are the things that I truly believe that needs to stand out on that agreement. What are you bringing to the partnership? All right. The essentials that need to be noted in that particular contract. And when I say your entry and exit criteria, meaning if we get into this deal, these are the things that we're bringing. And if the deal goes sour or something happens, a bus hits somebody, this is how we exit. Then we also need to agree on the same sort of strategy, because I can't be going to find flip opportunities and you are adamant about passive income. And how long will the existence of that partnership be? So I find that when you have got these things down on paper, that's when you now call Silna or you call Bruno and you say, you know what, guys, I have got a partner that I'm going into a joint venture with. We've got a couple of agreements already down on paper. By the time you actually get to the office, you have already, created a bit of a dance between you and your partner, and you and your partner have really just put down things. And this is where the lawyer is able to flesh out the contract. So again, when we say it depends, it really goes back to the deal. Then there's angel investors. What I have found in my personal experiences, Genevieve, I have not yet found an angel investor. In fact, I hadn't been looking for one. But I do feel that during training, I need to bring this to the awareness of people that there are people that are angel investors. You need to know who you're looking for. The chances are of connecting with the angel investor, you need to actually kind of have an idea in your mind of what type of profile that angel investor is. Look close to home. Some angel investors come in the shape, form, or manner of a relative that may have just inherited a lot of money and they don't know what to do with it. Network. That's what Edgar had mentioned the other day, is it's important for networking. Realize that angel investors generally don't fly solo. It means that you'll always find that they're going to be more than one. There's always going to be two or more. And then other times you use social media. But again, in using social media, you need to understand how you are using social media. What I will start off with tomorrow, how to use social media effectively, lessons from my deals, and numbers. And as we come to draw towards a conclusion, Silna also mentioned about business and tax, because there was somebody that was asking, should I buy it in my name or should I buy it in the name of a company or a trust or whatever the case is? Just a quick disclaimer, there is no substitute for proper advice from an accountant or a tax advisor, or rather, this is not. So anyway, this session is purely given to enable students to understand the questions needed to ask of a professional rather than to provide generic and often unhelpful solutions. There will always be a different answer to most of our standard taxation questions because of all our circumstances are different. That's exactly what Silna said. But I'm sharing this with you so that you don't take it and say, it was Jen who said that. I'm just sharing from my experience. Often the question is, how do I buy? In my personal name, a company name, or a trust? We've already unpacked that one with Silna. If you're dabbling and you're not quite too sure, try your personal capacity. If you feel like, hey, there's some muscle here, then go to a lawyer, have that conversation so that they are able to actually determine from what you say what structures are going to be useful for you. Okay? This one is also just reiterating that there's no general answer due to the differing circumstances of everybody. So most people who do have properties in a company, they generally do that because of asset protection. But again, understand from a lawyer, how best does asset protection work when you are buying property in the name of a company? When you actually ask again, you know what am I actually doing here? These are the things we're saying. Are you trading or are you investing? Are you dabbling? Are you trying to see whether it's going to work for you? Will you be the one that's giving a personal guarantee? Will you be the one funding? What type of funding will you be looking for? So those are the type of questions a lawyer will be able to ask you so that you can determine which way you are buying the property. There's also transfer duty, as Silna had shared. This is a tax that's generally payable on all types of property, and it's usually over $1 million at this point in time. It will change or may change over time. When you're buying property in your personal name, income tax is affected somewhere, somehow, right? So buy-to-let properties are taxed under the residential letting laws, rules. So really just understand that as an individual. When you're putting a company together, understand that as well. You sit down and you have that conversation with an attorney, because there's different rules that state that there's tax that is payable on the difference of the rent that comes in, okay, less the allowable expenses. At one given point in a deal, I used my company, and we literally just said, okay, cool. What's going to happen at the end of this is, because I've got an office, I've got a car, I've got a mobile phone, I need all of these different things to do this business. These were the allowable expenses that I was able to put these different rules attached to. The business corporation tax is paid by companies fundamentally on their profits less their allowable expenses. Again, I'm not in terms of giving you business advice and tax advice. This is information to bring to your awareness, and not giving you the advice of what must be done. And then there's something called capital gains tax. So capital gains tax is basically the tax on the resale of any sort of assets, or on the property, on the assets, okay? Anyone that disposes or generally sells their fixed assets, or following the death of the asset owner, that, if I pass away and there's the owner, this is liable for capital gains tax. So some people, you hear CGT. Some of the percentages may be slightly outdated, but as the last time I checked, I think up to now with the trust is now 42% or 45%. So when you are submitting your annual income tax return, any gains or losses based on a transaction during this particular period of time has to be declared and submitted. And that is the very fast version of what we were unpacking earlier this evening. Tomorrow, we will start on the lessons through the deals. I'll show you how I use social media personally to be able to get more investors. In fact, one of the things that I accidentally had done, and I didn't realize it would materialize, I don't know why though, is YouTube. My YouTube channel has attracted a few people that are like, Jen, I'm going to go and buy property soon. Can we talk? Can we broker a deal? So the power of social media is quite something. So Luyelo says, I see the bigger picture now. Thank you so much. Leslochonola says, I want to take action in sourcing strategy, but I have a fear of getting stuck on the way. I was asking if you will be able to help us with the deal, since this was for free, in case we need clarity. Look, I have no issues in helping you as far as I can. There are some things that take longer than others. So I can be fair and say to you at this point, if it's a quick answer and I can answer you on email or I can answer you on voice note, I've got no issues in doing that. However, if it's going to take 30 minutes or more of my time, all my services that I do in and around property investing, I charge my time, not the skill. Because the skill, I paid over 120,000. I didn't know how to quantify that in reasonable terms personally. However, what I do is, because of the consulting I do, I then have translated some of my consulting fees per hour on property. So where it comes to, it may take more than 30 minutes of my time, I will certainly say to you, the one-on-one coaching fee there you can find on my website. In fact, if there's anything you want to know about me, I'm an open book. You just go to my website and you'll be able to find the online courses that I do, the advanced training coupled with coaching, as well as the one-on-one coaching. I trust that has answered you adequately enough, because the biggest aim for me is that only for those that are really interested, that have been asking about it. Rather, we do that at the end of tomorrow, because I really want that the training that we've done right now not to be diluted with any sort of selling of services. I trust that that is okay with you. Cool. I tried to make that 15 minutes. I see I went slightly over. So, ladies and gents, do you have any questions so that we can close off this evening? If you don't have any questions, I will then want to say to you, actually, in the last 2 days, we have had 2 hours and 8-minute videos. So we 2 hours and 10 minutes. So it's not too bad. So I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your open mind. I want to thank you for your questions. Your questions has really just given this particular session quite a different flavor. Nari asks, have you paid tax with wholesaling? I want to say yes and no, not directly, but because I accept all my payments for any business transactions into my business account, my business has accordingly done what it needed to. So I'm up to date with taxes. Touch wood. Up to date with taxes. So everything that has come in to my business is either the consulting that I do, the testing that I do, the property wholesaling that I do, or the property training that I do. Everything goes into my business, and my bookkeeper makes sure that I am on point with my tax. So yeah, that's the best way I could answer you. However, in light of the tax laws, I think if you under, how much is it? Is 180? I think I stand corrected, right? The tax law, if you're under 180,000, you don't pay tax. There's a benchmark that when you're under here, you don't pay tax. So I would say that if you've been doing sourcing of deals and things like that, some investors are going to give you a shock and they're going to actually pay you cash. So I'm just going to leave that there. Kerry says, thank you very much for your time. Do we have homework? Anything we need to relook at? Kerry, yes, Kerry, what I'll do is in the email, I'll drop you another link. You heard from Silna tonight about the structures. There is a link that Gareth Shepperson and TJ did about property investment vehicles and structures. So in the homework, that is the one piece that I would that I'm going to encourage you guys to do. Tomorrow, what will be really nice, just before we really formally start the session, is to hear what homework have you guys done? Have you guys gone out to try any of the nuggets that you have learned? Have you gone online to start finding some deals? What is it that you've done with the information that you've got 3/4 of the way in? That would be a very good one to start off tomorrow. So there's only one piece of homework is for you to listen to that. And there's a secondary part to listening to that. It's because Gareth also gives a free consultation around structures. And if you're at that stage of wanting to fix structures and things like that, then you may want to take Gareth up on his free consultation. So, yeah. Lehlogonolo, I was going to say maybe have a conversation with Silna, see what she can help you with remotely. Bruno is also another attorney that does help with sourcing. See what he could do remotely. So I'll put both your details in an email for you. You would have to double check with them to what degree remotely can they help you. Or sometimes they may have different business partners in your side of the world, wherever you are, and then they could take it from there. Cool stuff. I haven't seen anything else except Kerry and Nare and Lehlogonola's question. Ladies and gents, I want to thank you for your time. Be absolutely awesome, and I trust that we're bringing it home for you. Tomorrow, let's close off with a home run. Everything you eventually going to start seeing in the straightforward question of running numbers is going to be seen tomorrow. And then you'll be able to tell me after we're done with the session tomorrow, is wholesaling what you thought it was for some of you? And then others would be able to tell me, is property investing what you thought it was? Cool stuff. You have a good one. Please be safe, be careful, and I will see you all tomorrow for the home run.